Welcome to the Customer Smarts podcast, where you'll discover smarter ways to deliver customer experiences. I'm your host, Justin Stafford. Every time a customer interacts with you, they are telling you something, often giving you clues about what they want next. However, many organisations are not taking advantage of this opportunity, even though digital has made it a lot easier to track all these interactions. Interestingly, customer decisioning is a field which capitalises on this very opportunity, where the focus is on using customer interaction data to drive the next best action for them. It's not a case of which product do I shove in their face next. It's much smarter and more nurturing than that. It's more about doing what's best for the customer, which sometimes is actually leaving them alone. Brands who are executing decisioning programs well are having big impacts on their bottom line. My guest in this episode is Pete Avery. His passion for CX and customer decisioning has driven him all over the world, implementing massive programs for organisations like Verizon in the US, O2 and Orange in the UK, Vodafone in Spain, and as well as some large companies in Australia like Suncorp and Westpac. In this episode, we're going to explore customer decisioning and the huge business impact it can have, how to implement it, the barriers you might need to overcome, how to get executive support, and how AI will make decisioning a whole lot easier. Welcome, Pete. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Justin. I'm excited to be here and to talk all things decisioning, which is probably my work passion.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to start by getting you firstly just to explain customer decisioning. It's such a fascinating space. So how would you actually explain it to a non-CX savvy executive like a CFO or even a CEO who might not quite understand it as well as you do?
Okay, so real-time customer decisioning is a capability that enables organizations to manage customer interactions better. So it's all about being more relevant, more real-time, more personalized. And its core is, it delivers a next best action capability, which is anything you want to recommend, offer, say, or do in your interaction. So it's guiding customers in their interactions. It's orchestrating and managing journeys. And most importantly, it connects the gaps between all your disparate channels. In many organizations have got 10, 12, some of them have got 20 different channels they engage their customers with. They're all run on different tech, and this joins all of those up. So you get a more connected, more seamless, more real-time cross-channel experience for your customers that is all very much about customers rather than products or channels, and helps the customers get the jobs to be done nice and seamlessly and delivers a great experience. So that's what real-time decisioning is really about. It delivers better revenue, better growth, better lifetime value, reduced retention. And it's a core capability for large-scale enterprises.
Yeah, I guess it's giving them the most relevant experience to that customer based on what you know about them. So trying to do your best to, personalize that experience. I think a lot of companies, struggle with that at the moment. They're trying to get to personalization at scale and all those types of things. But really, it's a case of giving the most relevant next step to that customer, isn't it?
Absolutely. And part of it is separating what personalization is and what relevance is, right? And relevance is the secret sauce here. Personalization is good and you can get better and better results by being more personalized. But the relevance is key around the context, right? What is someone trying to do? How do we help them solve their problem? How do we serve them better? Rather than I've personalized this offer that I want to target this customer with. It's vastly different. So look, if you can do personalization with fantastic relevance, then you're winning, right? But you can also personalize something that is not relevant whatsoever to the customer and it damages the customer experience. So, there are many elements to this puzzle around getting it right and continuously improving it. But relevance needs to be front and center. How relevant are we in our interactions with the customers? How do we make their life easier? How do we make this a great experience every time they deal with us across all our different engagement channels?
Yeah, absolutely. So when customer decisioning is done well, what type of business impacts have you seen in organizations you've worked with?
Some of the programs I've led, and I've worked all around the world in this space, have delivered hundreds of millions of dollars in commercial benefits each and every year of those programs as they've evolved those capabilities. So, and I've done that several times in different organizations, mostly telcos and banks, but it's also relevant for several other industries, utilities, retail, etc. That's the magnitude of benefits that is available. Obviously, it depends on the size and scale of the business, how many millions of customers you've got, but hundreds of millions of dollars each year.
Yep. And do you have any case studies you can share, or might not call out exact companies, but a particular telcos, or I know you've worked in that space a long time.
And part of it's what's public forum, right? There's clients that I can't talk about, but there's public forum stuff. So O2, where we started this 20 years ago, I mean, that program where we created a real-time decisioning capability and called it Next Best Action, that for the first decade delivered, in Australian dollar terms, well over $200 million a year in commercial benefits, right? From Next Best Action and retention optimization. So that's probably the pioneering one, before it radiated across the telcos in Europe and into the retail banks, starting with RBS and others. At Verizon, we solved a Wall Street churn problem, reduced the churn by, many basis points, in orders of magnitude. You're talking $200 to $300 million a year in commercial benefits, and brought churn back in under target. So they're just a couple of examples. There's many others out there in the public forum. But some of the clients don't tend to tell everyone how much money they've made out of this, because they don't want their competitors to do the same thing, or try and replicate that commercial success.
Yeah, it's such a massive impact, and it's really just from being smarter at. You got a massive customer database, and a lot of companies aren't really capitalizing on the opportunities that are there, but the ones that do, are getting these massive gains.
Yeah, and part of it here is really looking at the data, the analytics, and the commercial opportunity, right? And probably the biggest paradigm shift is that, this was born out of traditional marketing technology, campaign management space 20 years ago. And it took an initial pivot that it's actually all about the customer. So the decisioning is what's the best thing for the customer now is vastly different to I've got a product or an offer or recommendation of who do I target. So the entire paradigm is inversed. And that's really hard for a lot of execs, particularly ones with marketing backgrounds, to get their head around that it is the exact opposite approach to traditional campaign management and targeting and segmentation, right? It's all about starting with the customer, right? It's about living a customer obsession promise or a customer first promise to the street. This is a capability that helps you achieve that. It's a fascinating space, right?
So when it comes to, I guess, implementing one of those big customer decisioning programs, what are the key steps that you need to go through? What have you been through in the past? What, if you're going to set up something from scratch again, how would you tackle it?
It's a question I get quite often by different people, right, that are thinking about dabbling in this space, or where do I start? What do I do? And there's a few different things you really should do. I mean, the first thing is really around your capability assessment. What do you got today? What are you talking about changing? What's your sort of vision for this? And what are the underlying data capabilities like, your analytics capabilities like, your channels capabilities? Are you ready for this, right? What do you do today? What do you want to do tomorrow? What's the gap? What existing tech you've got? What's directional? What can help you get part of the way? What is there any holes in a particular space? A recent client, they had lots of good bits and things that needed to be improved, but they didn't have a real-time decisioning engine. But when you talk about roadmap, you've got to build, this has got to get return on investment, right? So you've got to build a business case, and prior to that, really a commercial opportunity assessment. So if we change this and this, we're going to get this much improvement in this particular metric in this channel, right? And ultimately, this has got to pay for itself. It's got to become a self-funding program. So there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done around program planning, and getting alignment across this. And there's probably going to be some underlying things you've got to build as well. What this uncovers is a bunch of other things that you've probably got to fix. So I'm just going to pick one example: a centralized customer interaction history, right? So an centralized history of all your interactions that every customer has, including all your campaign history and outcomes and things like that you can serve up to your channels. Most organizations have got huge holes in that particular space. They might have a a channel capability where I've interacted with the call center. They can see, people in the call center can see what they've done, but they haven't got a clue what's happened digitally. So, some of those things you go, well, we need centralized interaction history to make this stuff work, to join up all the experience across channels, see what they've just done digitally and why they're calling, because they've just fallen out of trying to finish the job digitally. So, I can go on and on, but there's many, many things you've got to do early. Ultimately, it's about bringing in the right expertise in this and planning this out before you get anywhere near, writing out your requirements, running RFPs for software solutions, finding implementation partners. There's a lot of pre-work and planning around should you go down this path.
Yep. Yeah, it's a massive undertaking. It's, I guess, so many different things involved, the data side, the technology, but also the mindset to this type of change. Like you said before, it's actually a big shift from often a product-centric culture to a customer-centric culture, which is almost a completely different operating model. So it does require a lot of, planning and really, working with those executives at the top level, sort of top down.
It does. And the other thing, so if you've got your roadmap and you say, I don't know, we've got 15 channels, right? Well, what's the first channel? What's the second channel? What's the third channel? And getting those channel leaders on board and engaged in this, right? This touches many different parts of your business. And part of it is the buy-in, the support, and the alignment across all these different things, including all the enterprise tech, right? And the channel owners and their KPIs. And a lot of it's the what's in it for me. So if someone owns the app, well, how does this help me hit my objectives? Someone owns the call center, vastly different objectives, right? How does this help reduce the calls? How does it help shorten the calls? How does it help drive NPS? How does it improve cross-sell, upsell? How does it improve retention? The different leaders across your business, you've got to have a what's in it for me, for them to be aligned to it and support to it. And things need to prioritize. I mean, it's a fascinating journey, but the answer is not go and buy some tech, bolt it in and see what happens.
Yeah, which happens, more often.
Too many times.
Too many times. Yeah, the tech will solve it all.
It's fascinating. Someone's like, I need this, and you go, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah.
And they can't answer the question, right? And you're like, well, stop talking to technology vendors until you figure out what you want to do.
My next question was going to be about barriers, but we sort of drifted into there naturally, which is
we need a couple of hours for barriers.
Yeah, well, here we go. So obviously there's quite a few. The product centric culture and mindset is one massive one. Sort of, like we touched on before a little bit. Operating in silos, like we just talked through at a high level. What are some of are there some others, or, do we want to dive into those two? Because they're probably, two of the biggest ones I would say, but obviously you have a better view of this.
There's quite a few, right? So there's many things that can derail and slow down these sort of programs. And part of it here is how we're doing in this particular space, right? So as an example, the alignment across the business stakeholders that they want to do this, right? The priority of this versus 20 other things going on. I mean, if this isn't in your CEO's top 10, it's not going to work. If it's not in the top 3 of the CMO, it's not going to work, right? Do you know what I mean? If it keeps getting deprioritized and, you're stuck in one channel, can't get to channel 2. So part of it here is just getting the right people on board, right? Early in planning this, right? So, if you're the CMO trying to drive this, or the chief customer officer, the most important person to put in the boat next to you is your equivalent in IT, right? We have so many clients that say, look, we hate IT, we want to just pay an agency to go build this. And it's like, whilst this is a business transformation program, there's a pretty big technical component. And if IT want to stop you, block you, slow you down, they will. You don't buy tech without IT. In fact, you shouldn't buy the tech. You got to, the CMO and the CTO need to be married on this stuff. So that typical silo problem rears its head every time. Yeah. The business versus IT. I mean, there's IT people that hate the business, and those barriers need to be addressed head on. This will not work if there's that level of animosity between people at every level.
What are some of the other barriers that pop up there? The human one's obviously a big one, but what else is on there?
Data is always I'm going to say the technical. I'm a business guy, right? So I'm usually running the program on the business side, right? But if I sit on the technical side of things, in the build, data is often the longest pole in the tent. In terms of a bunch of things in the data space that as an example, single view of customer, centralized interaction history, real-time data coming in from your channels, all of those enabling elements to make decisioning work really well and continuously improve the decisioning. You've generally got to do a fair bit of work in that data architecture space around creating a centralized, I'm going to say, whether it's a data lake or a customer analytical record, right? A single operational view that you can run decisioning across it, in milliseconds in every interaction, everything we know about, hundreds and hundreds of data fields, right? The way that architecture is built is really, really key. The maturity in the model space, particularly propensity models and around predictive intent, the channel architectures, right? In the way things are potentially containerized in terms of how do you get this offers and recommendations, where are the containers and the interactions of the different channels. And there's many, many issues on the business side or blockers or enablers, right? It's so funny. Some of the things that are the exact blockers in some organizations are the thing that enabled success in others. It's like you've got to flip the coin wherever you see it sort of on the negative side, and you've got to work with people to see this as a potential opportunity. And there's many other things you've probably got to address as part of this program, right, to make it really commercially successful.
Yeah, cool. And do you have any sort of good examples of overcoming some of these types of barriers, particularly like the people barriers? What would be your advice if the CX leader's kind of sitting there trying to work through these organizational silos and people not quite getting along? What would be your advice to them?
It changes at different stages. If you're trying to get one of these off the ground, part of that is believing from a roadmap benefits business case point of view to support it, to fund it and prioritize it, right? So there's a whole lot of proof points and things like that where you have to pilot or show results from other similar organizations, same industry stuff, right? And then you get other examples where you're in pilot or in your first channel and you're trying to get to second channel, third channel, right? So it was in a contained space and you're trying to radiate across your channels. The single most important thing to bring people on board is show me the money, right? Show me how that has delivered benefits, right? And on the metrics you said you were going to move, what your promise was in the business case, right? It's all about show me the money and show me how this hits my objectives, right? And part of it is, if someone in digital is trying to drive greater sales or retention or whatever it is, right, greater conversion, you've got to connect the dots between your capability that you're trying to put in and how it helps them deliver better business outcomes for their metrics, for their pay packet, for their bonus, and for the overall organization. And also the customer metrics, right? How does it deliver a better experience? How does it improve NPS? How does it improve loyalty? How does it reduce churn? And a lot of people are, particularly some of the execs, I'm going to say, need to be convinced. They don't necessarily just see this and go, yeah, we should flip everything we're doing on its head. Yeah. Right.
So how do you go
about time.
It does, doesn't it? How do you go about getting their buy-in and support? Do you sort of have a strategy? Do you look at the execs and go, CEOs about this, CFO, CMO, CTO? How do you get them on board and even, from a bigger, like a board point of view, going further up the chain, how does that all work and have you sort of navigated that in the past?
That's very much around the program planning and mobilization, right? Before you're getting the green light to go and spend X million dollars on a 3-year, 5-year program, whatever it is. And it's really working with their teams, working with their trusted lieutenants, getting their lieutenants allocated to this is key, right? Because a lot of them tend to trust their team. So you want some of their best people who are naturally would be associated with this in a build, right? You want the same people involved to be involved early enough, to be doing business cases, assessment, capability assessments, prioritizing the sort of work that. So they've got essentially their own team on board and they trust their team. So there's, a lot of it is people personalities more so than is it the CFO? It's how much diligence has gone into the planning and preparation of this? How much does it stack up? How thorough is the business case? How believable it is? What are the assumptions? So I'd say it's very much doing it with them, not to them. And as an example, you need the right commercial person from finance involved in this fairly early, right? The right people from marketing, people, particularly people that work in the campaign space, journey space, the right leads from each of the channels, the main channels that are going to be impacted early. So if you, as an example, if you, for whatever reason, someone said, we're going to do the call center first because of this problem and this problem, they've got to be involved shaping this thing up. And agents, right? If you're going to be impacting the human customer facing people, you want them involved in shaping up the requirements and things. So a lot of it is a bit of a people game.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. I think, like you've said before, like when you get a new concept or program forced upon you, you tend to get your nose out of joint, particularly if you haven't been involved at all. So you've kind of got to have that empathy and thinking from every perspective. What are they trying to do? What are their barriers, and does it actually help them? But like you said, you've got to actually involve them, and if they give you feedback, you've got to take it on board, and you've got to be seen to be either doing something with it or have an answer for why you didn't take it on board. Otherwise, that's where people start to back channel and attack new programs if you haven't gone through that process. Is that
Exactly.
sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, you need to really listen to that feedback you're getting, right? If you're getting pushback from a channel leader that you said we want to go there, I'm going to say second or third, and you're getting constant pushback from them and their team, and you're just thinking, you know what? We got to change our roadmap. The reality is that person doesn't believe in this, doesn't want to prioritize it, doesn't see value in it for their channel, can't see the dots between it. And you might try some different tactics to win them on board, but the reality is if they're going to be a negative voice on this and resistant, if you force it into their channel, it won't work. They will do their best to undermine it, deprioritize it. They may even let you pilot it and then they'll try and bury you. So part of it is you really got to listen to the feedback, right? You can't be arrogant about this stuff. This stuff is difficult and challenging, right? It's about creating that pull, right? If you've got resistance and pushback, you've got to listen to it. You've got to be humble about it, right? And you got to put yourself in their shoes, right? Whether you're an IT lead or a channel owner, whatever it is, put yourself in their shoes and see, what is this stuff coming at me? And you've got to create a degree of pull, and you need a degree of sponsorship of people that want to do this, believe in it, want to pilot it, know that it won't be perfect, have to test and evolve it. So I would say, listen to the human element, particularly around the communication, around the feedback, and then navigate and pivot accordingly. And sometimes, a pilot isn't good enough to be rolled out. Well, go back and fix it, test it again, change it until it is good enough. But there's many examples of that. Particularly, this is omni-channel. Right? This is going to be all channels. Yeah, so
it's a complex one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big statement, right? You go into an organization, hey, we're talking about implementing this omni-channel, which is all. It's not three. Yep. All channels, inbound, outbound, digital and paid, connecting the entire ecosystem up of marketing tech and ad tech, the data layer, operationally extending all our analytics capabilities into every interaction, right? It's a big, grandiose thing. And, sometimes it sounds a little bit blue sky, a little bit, we're going to solve world peace. But, how do you eat the elephant, right? You got to start slowly, you got to proof it out. You got to get some people on board to pilot something, to prove it out, right, and evolve it.
Yeah. Would you tackle, let's say, an individual who you're showing some resistance? Do you have any sort of tricks there? Do you take them out for a coffee? Do you, how would you go about that? I've come across that in the past, and you sort of, you have to have patience. You have to sort of work through it, listen to them as much as you can. How do you sort of tackle it?
I think the first thing here is listening to what's being said and what isn't being said, right? So you get a lot of people that will grin along and you think they're on board, and then you find out they're not at all, regardless what they said or what their body language might have been. So part of it is that whole listening to them. You've also got to very early on put yourself in their shoes in this particular situation. What are they trying to do? What's keeping them up awake at night? What are all their priorities. And most of the time, this wasn't on their to-do list most of the time, right? So this has come downhill from somebody, and it's just added a ton of bricks on their stack. Extra work and distraction and all of this stuff, right? And it's like, you know, and they're trying to hit their objectives, help their boss hit their objectives. So a lot of this is, you know, kind of just basic stuff, but they're, you know, it's really getting into understanding their concerns and listening to them and taking those concerns on board, particularly when it's active feedback that you go, actually, that's really powerful stuff. How do we listen to that feedback? How do we make particular changes or be more sensitive about this or that, right? Or change some priorities in our particular build order. So I think part of it is bringing them, it's building an effective working relationship, but it is very much about listening to what their angst is or objections of this. When the objections is only about the paradigm of customer versus product centric, right, of targeting and segment audience based, that's a different problem to solve. That's you got to be super careful there, because that's like saying my God is better than your God.
Yeah.
Right. Someone's belief system, and the fact is they can coexist. And it's working with them on examples how that these different philosophies actually can fit really well, particularly as an example with journey orchestration. Right. That part of that is really working on the relationships in there and understanding they're still going to get a bunch of execs saying target the top 200,000 people with this, 50,000 with that. That is not going to change quickly. So how does this coexist in that world where you go, actually, we don't do it that way, right? Where you go, well, how could I, and how do I achieve similar results? So those take longer to bring them on board. And sometimes they become the biggest advocates, right? And some of those are, you know, engagement discussions that go on for a year or two before you would say this person's flag waiver and support. And there'll be other people that for whatever reason are so resistant to change or different ways that will be forever a blocker.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you gone about, that's obviously a common one, you know, that sort of traditional marketing mindset and the customer centric mindset. How have you sort of in the past gotten some of those people, won them over? What have you sort of done or showed them, and I guess almost educated them in different ways that, you know, this can actually help you? What are some tricks up your sleeve there?
The best one is, you know, pilot results, initial results. You know, we said we'd do this. What did we do? Right. So the initial promise or the claims in a business case in terms of metrics and the various metrics that matter to that particular individual, to the business, the stakeholder, CEO. Part of it is how you prove that this delivers better business outcomes or better customer outcomes, right? That is probably the most impactful thing for people to go from being negative to being sort of on the fence to being a little supportive to being, you know, big fans and believers in this. And the coexistence, and they see that it's additive to what they're doing rather than disruptive or replacing it or taking away controls. Part of it's understanding, you know, someone's like, well, I control this, and you want to take away that control. So part of it is just really peeling back the onion on what the resistance is about, and just be really humble about this in terms of it's not about forcing stuff on people, right? It's about, you know, a new way to manage customer engagements and customer interactions, right? And be, you know, how do we be more relevant, right? If we could be more relevant in these interactions, you know, we'd probably get better NPS and sell more stuff, right? Stuff customers to stay with us longer, so we'd reduce churn. So some of those are slowly conversations, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the other thing is your evangelists in the organization, particularly the senior ones, help you to convince others. You know what I mean? You can't be, this isn't a single change agent doing this. This is, you know, multiple people believing and evangelizing this, particularly at senior levels right across the organization, right? If you're the only person trying to drive this change for a number of years, you've got to get other people in the band helping you drive that particular change at senior levels. So it's not just you, because if it's just you and then you leave, what do you think happens?
Yeah, disappears.
It goes back to the way it was, because most people are resistant to change.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about the AI in the decisioning space. What are you expecting to see that AI will help enhance? What changes, or what are you hoping to see?
Well, let's break that down a little bit. So if you said part of our next best action is, predicting intent. Why is someone on this channel? What job are they trying to do? How do we help them? Well, part of it is the AI bit, and the predictive modeling bit is what do we think they're trying to do with what probability? Then you've got all your propositions, your offers, your recommendations, questions, those things. What is their likelihood of interest or acceptance in this, right? And that's all predictive models, AI around that, right? What is the relationship between what they're doing now and intent? So that real time, hey, that we think they're actually trying to do that, all the AI around that, right? What is the journey path they've been on, all their different touch points? And how do we use the AI around that? We really think they're trying to do this. The next thing's to help them on that journey, whatever they're trying to do, trying to solve this, buy that, solve a problem, change an address, whatever it is. All right. That's kind of, I would say, the AI 101 in the decisioning space, right? That's I'm going to say the building blocks that lead to operationally extending your analytics. Where it's newer, that stuff's been around and been evolving, but where it is, and journey analytics is fresh, but fairly mature now, right? That all layers in there. The bit that I suppose is more game changing is around the proposition development. So if I've got an offer that I'm targeting 50,000 people and it's got one image with it, you go, how do I personalize that? Well, maybe I've got 6 different variants of images, and I might break that up and go, well, for each of those 50,000 people, what's the best image, right, to make it more personalized? And I might have 4 different scripts. Well, which is the best script and image combination? So there's 24 variants. Well, now we're going to do that with 1,000 variants.
Yeah.
For the same 50,000 people. So what we're going to be doing is using Gen AI to create more personalized image, more personalized messaging. And we're going to do that at enterprise scale, right? So it's more relevant, and more relevance drives greater clicks, greater purchases. So the game is around that relevance, right? The path towards it is a greater degree of personalization, but you can't get to that 10x, 100x in terms of that content creation or the messaging variations by doing things the same way because of the human costs, the artwork, all of that. So that bit is hugely exciting.
Yeah.
And the test and learn side of that, right, and the evolution of that. The other bit, if you think of the world we're moving towards, so if you think of how clunky and disappointing chatbots have been as a person, right, for the last decade, lots of promise, but some of them, like within 15 seconds, you're going, I need to talk to a human, right? They're just awful. Imagine if they were awesome, right? So think voice AI, you're calling the call center, but you've got a digital assistant that is, like their best ever rep with all of the knowledge and connected into your data to solve your problems and solve everything, right? So think voice AI on steroids, right? How does decisioning layer into if there's any offers and layer in, not replace, right? Same thing in terms of a chatbot. So if you think around this AI personal assistant stuff, right, becoming super intelligent, but not generic, but about you, like a personal assistant, how does the decisioning feed into that? That's sexy and huge value opportunity, right? Because if you think you're running a call center, what's an average cost call? $20, $30, $40 internally when you look at, Verizon had 30,000 call center staff, right? So, when you're looking at those sort of things and going, how do we deliver an awesome experience without having someone needing to actually call us, right? So improving the digital experience, they don't have to call, but if they do, how do we solve that again? We can say with a digital assistant, so it doesn't cost much money, right? I'm talking to a human.
It's actually time to wrap up. So, it's been really great to chat to you, Pete. You've given us some really fascinating insights into the world of customer decisioning, that's next best action, just a great perspective on CX overall. So thanks for coming and joining me.
I appreciate your time, Justin.
Thanks for tuning in. Some amazing insights from a great CX leader. If you found this insightful, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button now, as we have some great episodes coming up. And if you have any questions or would like to chat, reach out to us at customersmarts.co. Catch you next time.